Before we get started, I had the pleasure of collaborating with Comic Drake on a video titled The Rise and Fall of Jon Stewart, which is about all the crazy stuff that's happened to the character in recent years. It was a fun experience for me, and I think the video turned out to be pretty good, so check it out when you have the chance. Alright everybody, it's time for another round of your questions. As always, if you have a question you'd like answered, leave it in the comment section of this video, and I'll do my best to answer it in a future Q&A just like this one. Now let's get into it! Meatball Marinara asks, is the Earth currently home to a rage entity but also the life entity at the same time? Could the rage entity feed off of the other one or something? Or would the life entity just nullify the other and that's why the second butcher hasn't hatched? The life entity was drawn out of the Earth during Blackest Night and then traveled beyond the source wall with the rest of the fully grown entities during the Lights Out storyline. We don't currently know what happened to it after that point, but it must still be alive since all life in the universe is connected to it, and the universe is still very much alive. So I suppose it could have returned to its old resting place within the Earth. Either way, the young rage entity growing within the Earth wouldn't bother it at all. The other entities are always shown as having a level of reverence for the life entity, maybe out of instinct. They know not to mess with it, and they listen when it calls to them. Zanganov asks, what do you think of Saint Walker existing in the comics without really having his blue ring influence? It felt rough seeing him get tortured by Sinestro once, and then seeing him, I guess as a Green Lantern now, is treated very passively. You know, I understand the impulse to take a character who's all about one thing and force them to experience the opposite. To take the most hopeful person in the universe and see what happens when they become hopeless. But in the case of Saint Walker, it feels like a cheap and easy way to give him a character arc without having to try that hard. There was a period of time, I think during the Robert Venditti run of Green Lantern, where Saint Walker was depressed and not acting like himself, and he didn't want his ring anymore, so it was just hovering next to him all the time. That felt like it went on forever, and it didn't even tell us anything interesting about Saint Walker. Maybe the problem is the way arcs like this tend to treat hope like it's all or nothing. That becomes a big problem when hopefulness is also the character's main defining trait. Get rid of that and suddenly we're forced to confront the fact that they really haven't done much to build up most of these characters beyond telling us what color rings they wear. I want to know as much about Saint Walker as I know about Hal Jordan and the rest of the human Green Lanterns. Until we know more about him, losing one ring and gaining another doesn't mean all that much. Wario Scapelli asks, has Obsidian ever been a part of the Green Lantern Corps? Do you think he'd ever be interested in joining one of the Lantern Corps? He hasn't, and I don't really expect him to. A big part of Obsidian's journey has been about figuring out who he really is, beyond all of the emotional and psychological baggage put onto him by others. He's finally in a good place, and has carved out a life and identity of his own, which I think suits him better than becoming another Lantern. Besides, his sister has already done a good job of following in their father's footsteps. She even used a Green Lantern Corps ring a few times. Jaden Barricade asks, in live action, do you think Kyle's stories would be better as a show or movies? You could do it as movies, but Kyle's story feels more conducive to a season of television. Episodic villain of the week type stuff, connected by the overarching saga of his personal life, as he tries to come to terms with all of these new regrets and responsibilities, while also trying to make it as an artist in the big city. Movies would force his stories to be big. And to really nail the impact of all this on Kyle's life, you need to tell a whole series of small interconnected stories that build up to something larger and have a ton of room for personal growth. Lucky Luke asks, which stories would you like to be collected in DC compact form? There's an old series of trade paperbacks titled Tales of the Green Lantern Corps. The first 2 volumes are primarily a collection of a bunch of short one-off stories about random alien Green Lanterns. Volume 1 also has a 3-part story about the whole Green Lantern Corps working together. And fun fact, this is the first appearance of both Arisia and Necron. But I mostly just want to have all of those short stories about all those random lanterns easily accessible to new readers, like a miniature Book of Oa or something. I'd also love to see Red Lanterns by Charles Soule, specifically issues 21 through 34, Annual #1, and the Future's End one-shot. Marcia Williams asks, What do you think about a verse where there was only one lantern ring and every Green Lantern is just a legacy hero? Like from the ring's creation to now, every lantern, both alien and human, had the same ring. So there's only one Green Lantern at any given time. So each time the ring finds a lantern, it starts recording them and over time creates a perfect guide to being a Green Lantern. Kinda like a pseudo-avatar state. It's funny you mention Avatar because my mind went immediately to how One for All works in My Hero Academia. Green Lantern comics have played with this idea a little bit. During the Kyle Rayner years, his was the one and only functional Green Lantern ring in the universe, and it was locked to Kyle's DNA, so only him or a close genetic relative could use the ring. During a trip to the future, Kyle discovered that nobody had ever seen or heard of a Green Lantern in generations, and that the legacy had seemingly ended with him. This version of the 30th century got its first real Green Lantern when Kyle's ring fell into the hands of Kyle's own descendant, a woman named Carrie Wren. There was also the Circle of Fire storyline, which presented us with multiple Green Lanterns claiming to be from different time periods, including a pair of cousins who come from a time when the Green Lantern Corps is made up entirely of Kyle's future descendants who all take turns sharing the ring. Bob Talking About Comics wants to know, what was the existing history behind Black Hand before Geoff Johns took over? William Hand was just some dude who never fit in with the rest of his family, so he started committing crimes as a way of rebelling against them. The name Black Hand was kind of a pun, since he saw himself as the black sheep of the family. He was also a genius inventor, a fact that has been thoroughly forgotten. He created that handheld device that can absorb and use Green Lantern energy. But ultimately, he didn't have what it takes to be a top-tier villain. He got sick of always failing and getting beat up, and he even developed a phobia of superheroes. He actually retired and tried to go straight by getting a job running an adult theater. That all fell apart when Guy Gardner showed up to the theater one day with Tora because he thought it would be a wonderful place to take her on a date. This was back when Guy was kind of the worst. But yeah, Black Hand had a good gimmick that he could never live up to, probably because he only ever had a weak motivation to be a villain in the first place. All of that changed extremely once Geoff Johns took over, and the character's never been the same since. James Walker wants to know, shouldn't Atrocitus be as powerful as Hal Jordan since he is the creator of the Red Lantern ring and is attuned to the rage in the way the Guardians are attuned to will, and also has blood magic, which is how he created the rings in the first place, and also bears the rage for the destruction of Sector 666, and he also killed the other 5 inversions and stole their blood magic. He's also the most experienced with the Red Ring. How the hell did he lose to Guy Gardner because he was upset about his daddy issues? This makes no sense. I think there's an argument to be made that Atrocitus was as strong with rage as Hal is with will, since he was able to create the red rings and batteries and even the central battery himself, without the aid of a guardian or any higher power. And yeah, his power level fluctuates based on the story they want to tell, but I think the nature of these powers makes that okay. When your power is tied to your emotion, it stands to reason that any major emotional change you go through would have an impact on how powerful you are. The goal driving Atrocitus for so long was revenge against the Guardians for the massacre of his home sector. And then by the end of the Geoff Johns run, he got it. He got his revenge. All of the Guardians were killed. Well, all of them, as far as anyone knew at the time. Atrocitus even got to take his time, making the final one suffer. And you have to wonder, what would that do to his rage? It's true that revenge doesn't actually make anything better, but I think it's significant that the example you brought up of Guy being able to get angry enough to overpower Atrocitus and steal his red ring happened after Atrocitus achieved the goal that was motivating his anger. Orange Crisis asks, if the Zamarons are the females of the Malthusian species, where did the female guardians like Sade come from? It happened back in 2002, in Green Lantern number 150. Kyle Rayner decided to give up his godlike ion powers and go back to being a regular Green Lantern again, and one of the last things he did with that power was resurrect the Guardians who all died back in Emerald Twilight. And when they came back, they were all babies, and they seemed to be a pretty even mix of boys and girls. Kyle explains why they're babies, and I guess I'm misremembering because I thought he also explained why some of them are girls. I have this memory of Kyle talking to Ganthet about how they seemed to just naturally take this form, and that now the Guardians would have a more balanced perspective on things. I went back and looked, and nothing like that is in issue 150, so maybe it's from a later issue. Or maybe my memory is playing tricks on me. If anybody out there knows, please leave a comment and tell me about it. And lastly, Juan Martinez asks, do Green Lanterns get compensated for the work they do? I understand being a hero, you do things for the greater good without asking anything in return, but specifically talking about human lanterns, how do they afford rent? Hal has been shown crashing at his brother's place. John owns a home, but I find it hard to believe that Kyle could still afford a New York apartment with a freelance artist's salary. I don't even think Jessica and Simon have jobs outside of the Corps. The Green Lantern Corps is made of 100% volunteers. The upside is that you're free to quit at any time, and the Guardians will never force you to stay against your will, even during their more villainous phases. The downside is that it more or less destroys every other aspect of your life. The Jeremy Adams run started by showing Hal living in an RV that I think probably belongs to his brother, without a job or any savings. Simon and Jessica each have good relationships with their siblings, so I can't imagine either of them would have a hard time finding a place to stay. And Simon did move into the local sector house for a little while. But yeah, the last time we saw the two of them on Earth, Simon couldn't find anyone who'd hire him with his criminal record, and Jessica had just started washing dishes at a diner. I have to assume that job's gone now since she hasn't shown up for her shift in a very long time. And the same is true with Kyle. There is zero chance he still has an apartment. New York City is one of the most expensive places to live in the United States, and Kyle hasn't been working or paying rent for God knows how long. He'll really be screwed the next time he comes back to Earth, since the only extended family Kyle has to crash with is his estranged father, and I don't think their relationship is exactly there just yet. Realistically though, any one of them could probably stay at the Justice League Watchtower, especially now that it's expanded and the Lanterns have their own wing of the station. We know they've got their own kitchen and lounge area, there must be a few bedrooms in there too. Honestly, in terms of maintaining a normal job while also dedicating yourself to the Green Lantern Corps, the smartest character in the whole bunch is probably Guy Gardner. He couldn't run his bar while spending so much time in space, so he just opened a new bar on Oa. It got wrecked during Blackest Night, and then the planet exploded a few years later, but other than that, it was a really good idea. And that'll do it for this batch. If you have a question you'd like answered, leave it in the comment section down below, and it might be featured in a future video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, so that you'll know when the next installment of this Q&A series comes out, and follow me on Blue Sky for more of my thoughts on comics in general. Until next time, thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan, we'll talk again soon.